Have you ever wondered what happens when people, pushed to the very edge, finally decide to rise together and say, "No more"? Sometimes, it only takes a single spark to ignite a fire that changes history forever. The First War of Independence, in India, which took place in 1857, did not emerge suddenly. It had deep roots in the growing dissatisfaction among the Indian people due to the policies of the British East India Company. The British had been steadily increasing their control over Indian territories through military conquest and political pressure. Many Indian rulers lost their kingdoms because of the doctrine of lapse, a policy under which the British annexed any state where the ruler had no biological heir. This policy angered many royal families and created widespread resentment. At the same time, Indian farmers and peasants were suffering under high taxes and harsh land policies. They were forced to pay heavy revenues even in times of famine, and many lost their lands to British moneylenders. Indian artisans and craftsmen faced ruin as British goods flooded the market, destroying traditional industries. Moreover, there were social and religious issues causing unrest. The British imposed many changes that interfered with traditional customs and religious practices. For instance, reforms like banning sati and introducing Western education were seen as attacks on Indian culture and religion. There was also deep suspicion that the British wanted to convert Indians to Christianity. The growing presence of Christian missionaries further increased this fear. Among the Indian soldiers, known as sepoys, there was growing anger over pay differences and a lack of respect from British officers. The sepoys felt discriminated against and were frustrated by the slow promotion opportunities compared to British soldiers. Altogether, these factors created a sense of deep frustration and anger. People from all sections of society, rulers, soldiers, farmers, artisans, and religious leaders, felt threatened by British rule. These tensions built up over many years, forming the background for the massive uprising that erupted in 1857. Against British control, the immediate spark that ignited the First War of Independence in 1857 came from an issue involving the Enfield rifle, which was newly introduced to the British Indian Army. The soldiers, known as sepoys, were required to use cartridges for this rifle that were believed to be greased with the fat of cows and pigs. In order to load the rifle, soldiers had to bite open the cartridge with their teeth before pouring the powder into the barrel. This action created outrage among both Hindu and Muslim sepoys. For Hindus, cows are considered sacred, and consuming any part of them is strictly forbidden. For Muslims, pigs are seen as unclean, and contact with anything related to pigs is forbidden by their religion. The rumor about the cartridge grease deeply hurt their religious sentiments and created a widespread sense of betrayal. Even though the British authorities later tried to assure the soldiers that no such fat was being used, the damage had already been done. The soldiers no longer trusted their commanders. The belief spread rapidly among the sepoys that the British were deliberately trying to defile their religion and force them to convert to Christianity. This led to growing anger and a refusal by many soldiers to use the cartridges. One of the first to openly resist was Mangal Pandey, a sepoy who attacked British officers in Barakpur and was later executed. The tension quickly reached a breaking point when a group of sepoys in Meerut refused to use the cartridges and were harshly punished by their officers. This act of punishment became the tipping point, leading to a revolt on May 10, 1857, where the sepoys attacked British officers, freed imprisoned comrades, and marched toward Delhi. The rebellion spread rapidly as others joined the cause. During the First War of Independence in 1857, several remarkable leaders emerged who inspired people to join the rebellion against British rule. One of the earliest known figures was Mangal Pandey, a sepoy in the British Army, whose defiance and attack on British officers made him a symbol of resistance. His execution became a rallying point for others. In Delhi, Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last Mughal emperor, was declared the symbolic leader of the revolt. Though elderly and without much political power, he became the face of the rebellion, as many rebels respected him as a unifying figure. In Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai became one of the most iconic leaders of the movement, widowed, and denied her right to rule by the British under the doctrine of lapse. She led her troops bravely into battle, becoming a symbol of courage and determination. Her defense of Jhansi and her daring escape on horseback, carrying her adopted son, showed her fearless spirit. Nana Sahib, the adopted son of the deposed Maratha ruler, Baji Rao II, also led the revolt in Kanpur. Angered by the British refusal to continue his family's pension, he played a key role in the uprising and led several fierce battles. Tantia Tope, a close ally of Nana Sahib, was known for his military strategies and his leadership in central India. He organized guerrilla warfare against British troops, moving swiftly to avoid capture. Begum Hazrat Mahal of Awadh emerged as another influential leader. After her husband, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, was exiled, she took charge and led the forces in Lucknow, fiercely resisting the British. These leaders, despite coming from different backgrounds and regions, shared a common goal of ending British control, and their bravery continues to be remembered in India's history. The First War of Independence began on May 10, 1857. In the city of Meerut, where a group of sepoys openly rebelled against their British officers, they attacked the British officials, released fellow imprisoned soldiers, and then marched to Delhi. The rebels reached Delhi and proclaimed Bahadur Shah Zafar as their emperor, making Delhi the central symbol of the uprising. This move inspired many others to join the rebellion, and soon it spread to other important cities. In Kanpur, Nana Sahib led the revolt, and the city witnessed fierce fighting. After initial successes, the rebels faced brutal counterattacks by British forces, resulting in heavy bloodshed. In Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai took charge and defended her city with unmatched bravery. Despite being heavily outnumbered, she led her forces against the British, becoming a symbol of resistance. In Lucknow, Begum Hazrat Mahal played a key role in organizing the defense of the city against British attacks. The city turned into a battleground as the British laid siege, facing strong resistance from local fighters. In central India, Tantia Tope conducted successful military campaigns using guerrilla tactics, which caused significant trouble for British troops. Across northern and central India, smaller towns and regions also joined the rebellion, with local rulers and common people alike rising against British rule. The revolt witnessed both large-scale battles and smaller skirmishes, showing the widespread nature of the uprising. However, the British slowly started to regain control through superior military resources and reinforcements from abroad. They recaptured Delhi after heavy fighting and re-established their authority in other major cities, crushing the rebellion in many areas. Despite strong resistance in several places, the rebellion eventually began to weaken under the British military pressure, but its impact left deep marks across the country's political and social landscape. The British response to the First War of Independence was swift, harsh, and brutal. After the initial shock of the uprising, the British government sent large numbers of troops from Britain and other colonies to India. Their main goal was to regain control over the rebellious regions as quickly as possible. The British forces advanced toward Delhi, which had become the symbolic center of the revolt under Bahadur Shah Zafar. The siege of Delhi lasted for several months, with fierce fighting on both sides. Eventually, the British broke through the city's defenses, captured it, and punished the rebels severely. Many were executed without trial, and even civilians suspected of aiding the rebels faced harsh treatment. Bahadur Shah Zafar was captured, tried, and exiled to Burma, marking the official end of the Mughal dynasty. In Kanpur, after retaking the city from Nana Sahib's forces, the British carried out brutal reprisals. Hundreds of Indians, both rebels and civilians, were killed in retaliation for earlier killings of British residents during the uprising. In Lucknow, the British Army fought a prolonged battle to recapture the city. Once successful, they conducted mass executions and demolished many parts of the city to crush any remaining resistance. Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi died, fighting bravely in battle, and other leaders like Tantia Tope were later captured and executed. The British justified their harsh measures by claiming they were necessary to restore order, but their actions led to widespread suffering. Entire villages were burned, and many people were left homeless. The repression also included changes in law to make it easier to punish those involved in the rebellion. The British government removed the East India Company from power and took direct control of India, marking the beginning of the British Raj, which would last for many decades afterward. The legacy of the First War of Independence in 1857 is deeply significant in Indian history. Although the rebellion was eventually suppressed, it left lasting impacts on the country and its people. The uprising marked the end of the Mughal Empire, which had lasted for centuries. After the fall of Delhi and the exile of Bahadur Shah Zafar, the British officially removed the Mughal dynasty from power, ending their rule forever. Another major outcome was the complete dissolution of the British East India Company. The British government decided that such a massive rebellion was partly caused by the misrule of the company. In 1858, the British Crown took direct control over India. Beginning the period known as the British Raj, India's governance shifted to the British Parliament, and a new administrative system was introduced. The British also reorganized the army to reduce the chances of another revolt. They increased the number of British soldiers in India and placed stricter controls over Indian troops. Policies were made to avoid religious interference in Indian customs, but distrust between the rulers and the people remained strong. Despite its failure, the rebellion ignited a nationalistic spirit among Indians. Many people started to recognize the need for unity across different regions, religions, and communities to fight against foreign rule. The stories of brave leaders like Rani Lakshmibai, Nana Sahib, and Tantia Tope inspired future generations. The revolt became a symbol of resistance, showing that Indians were willing to fight for their freedom and dignity. In later years, Indian nationalists looked back at 1857 with pride, calling it the First War of Independence. It planted the early seeds of the independence movement, which grew stronger in the following decades and eventually led to India gaining freedom from British rule in the 20th century. The story of the First War of Independence in 1857 is not just about battles and leaders. It is about the spirit of a people who stood up against injustice and foreign control. Though the rebellion was ultimately crushed, its impact echoed through history. It brought together people from different regions, faiths, and backgrounds. In a shared struggle for freedom, it showed the power of unity and the courage of those who refused to accept oppression. The sacrifices of the rebels became a lasting reminder of the price of freedom and the importance of standing up for one's rights. This struggle, though unsuccessful at the time, planted the seeds for future movements that would later lead to India's independence. The memory of those who fought in 1857 lives on, reminding generations of the value of freedom, the strength of unity, and the unbreakable will of people who dare to dream of a better tomorrow.